Molo Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Hello, hello, hello. It is a first Vuka Nazo for 2023 here on the Big Daddy Liberty Show. My name is Usihle Ngobese. How was the festive season, people? I hope you guys had a fantastic break. We're back on your screens, and it's going to be an interesting first, let's call it 2 weeks of the Big Daddy Liberty Show's Vuka Nazo. A reminder to you of what our plans are as the BDL show for 2023. Have a look over here. That's the last video we did last year, in which I described what 2023 will look like. Bigger, better analysis, more faces, and more of this Zulu mug out on the streets talking to you as South Africans. And of course, more importantly, pushing our liberty ideas amongst ordinary South Africans. So have a look at that and catch up as to what we're going to be up to. With that being said, morning, this is Vuka Nazo, your morning news analysis show, the first one for 2023. Just a reminder, as I always say on the show, that if you like the content, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, hit that like button. Do it now, whether you're watching this live, in a sense, with it being out at 7 a.m. or if you're watching it throughout the day or later in the day. If you're watching on YouTube in particular, do me a solid favor. Hit that subscribe button, share it with your friends, help us grow the show. And speaking about this show, if you like how we start your mornings, then go over to our friends at the Daily Friend. They come to you Mondays to Thursday, every day at 1 p.m. So check them out. They'll be on your screens a little later today. With that being said, enough of the jibber jabber. Let's get straight into the news. All right, we begin here this morning, of course, with an age-old problem, one that really began in this country, a self-imposed problem, if I'm to be brutally honest, began in 2008. That is load shedding or rolling blackouts, rolling electricity blackouts for my international audience, a problem South Africa experiences at the hands of the ruling party. Yes, that's right, those wannabe socialists who govern this country, the African National Congress, led, of course, by a corrupt, inept kleptocrat, a one Cyril Ramaphosa, who the last time we spoke on the show had, of course, been re-elected to be the head pig at the trough of the ANC. Re-elected, of course, by his fellow ANC crooked cadres. Nonetheless, as I said, load shedding now descending into a even deeper pit of hell, something which I had warned you about on the show, that load shedding or rolling blackouts will, of course, become even worse. And why? Because the very ideology at the center of this issue is what's crippling us, an ideology that places or sees the state seeing itself as the sole, or should be the sole producer of electricity. I argued it's that very ideology, a statist ideology, a state-centric or statist ideology, which is one which will see the problem of rolling blackouts never being fixed, because no matter how much power, or no matter how much resources, no matter how much effectively leeway you give politicians, the political elites, and indeed state officials, it's never enough, and there is never an incentive by them to actually produce something that you want. In this case, produce the electricity that we clearly have demand for in this country. Now, let me be precise and specific about this problem insofar as those who've responded to it. Obviously, opposition parties up in arms, South Africans up in arms, with the DA, that's the Democratic Alliance, basically saying it's going to march on the ANC's headquarters, that's Luthuli House in Johannesburg. Now, the piece itself is in Eyewitness News. Let me quickly read from it. The march is planned for the 25th of January. This, of course, after energy regulator NERSA recently approved Eskom's application tariff increase by 18.6% for the 2023-24 financial year. This as the country, of course, contends, as I mentioned, with stage 6 power cuts. DA leader John Steenhuisen said the country was being subjected to all of this due to the corruption and maladministration within the governing party. He's quoted as having said the DA's protest will specifically target Luthuli House because this is the scene of the crime that the ANC continues to perpetrate against the people of South Africa. There is only one organization that is responsible for this misery and hardship, and that the electricity crisis is causing the electricity crisis rather is causing South Africa, citing of course that the guilty party is the African National Congress, end of quote. Now here's the thing, John Steenhuisen is completely correct. He's right about this. However, one has to search back in history a little bit as to this particular type of protest of taking it to Luthuli House. You've got to remember, the ANC are socialists, violent socialists. And we saw, for instance, the last time the DA marched on Luthuli House, that's the headquarters of the ANC, how the ANC responded violently, hurling rocks and indeed assaulting DA members. I have friends who were part of that particular march who were assaulted violently by thuggish, goonish ANC thugs. I don't even know what other word to describe them. The DA had been on the receiving end of the violence, and if you go back even further in history, the IFP had also been a victim of the violence from the ANC when it, in a protest going past ANC headquarters, also found itself actually being shot at by ANC thugs and goons. So a word of caution perhaps to the DA as it does this, DA operating under the assumption that the ANC is rational in this particular instance. Indeed, even Julius Malema on social media coming up with a response, basically tweeting back and saying this is perhaps not a good idea and that maybe this protest ought to be directed to the union buildings. Now, of course, Julius is only saying this because he's playing his actual position of being an unofficial faction of the ANC. So I'm not really taking Julius serious about this, but the point he's making about directing our anger broadly as South Africans, maybe I'm making this particular point riding off of his tweet. The point should be our anger as South Africans should be directed to actual institutions of power that are being corrupted by the ANC, and that the ultimate way to fix this is, on the one hand, yes, in 2024, voting the ANC out, but ultimately, we need to put in place a new generation of South Africans who are liberty-minded, who see the free market, property rights, and free trade as a way of fixing these issues that we're facing. Eskom has to be broken up and generation of electricity in this country opened up to the private sector. The grid itself can still be maintained by the state, but actual provision of generation of electricity should be opened up to the market. That is the only way you're going to incentivize or indeed get rid of load shedding. Private sectors coming on board and generating the electricity that clearly the state under Eskom is failing to do. All right, I take you now to, again, Pretoria, the same head of the seat of power that I was just speaking about, where the president of the country, a one douchey, corrupt kleptocrat, as I mentioned earlier, Cyril Ramaphosa, who at the moment is schmoozing in Davos amongst the elites in the world at the World Economic Forum's meeting in that part of the world. Begs the question what he's doing there, given the absolute mess that he's left in this country and the lies he's likely spinning amongst his hobnob rich elites in that part of the world. But anyway, I digress. The news, of course, being that a cabinet reshuffle is likely on the way when Cyril does return to the country. I'm taking this, of course, from a independent online piece, which basically cited the winners and the losers. I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but I'm going to go into some key figures who are winners and losers here. The article cites, of course, the following. Now, 3 independent sources confirmed that Makura, that's David Makura, of course, who's the former premier of Gauteng, had been tipped to become a new minister in the presidency as the current minister, Mondli Gungubele, is likely not to get a cabinet post after, quote, a series of blunders that irritated the president and most members of the ANC. Now, if I scroll down to the bottom of this article and show you some of the other losers to this, you've got to remember, those who stood against Cyril Ramaphosa at the recent ANC conference are likely very nervous with sweaty palms right now. I'm talking about a one Nkosazana Buffalo Bill Dlamini Zuma.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
and the Poppy herself, Ulindiwe Sisulu. Let's read in the article, which continues saying that Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, or Buffalo Bill, it puts the mask on its face or else it gets the lockdown again, is expected to get the chop after she defied the party line and voted in favor of a Section 89 independent panel recommendation that would have paved the way for Ramaphosa to be impeached. That's, of course, following the Pala scandal. Now, I did mention, of course, that Tourism Minister Lindiwe Sisulu, who did not attend the parliamentary voting process, is also expected to be axed for being a thorn in Ramaphosa's flesh. End of quote. Now, the article goes on to say another soon-to-be vacant position is that of the Transport Minister after Fikile Mbalula was elected as Secretary General of the ANC in December, which is a full-time job, that is being Secretary General. It's unclear who will likely take over the troubled Transport Department as Minister. End of quote. Now, even as I say this, these are some of the expected chopping and changing, and one change which may very well happen, given that Paul Mashatile was elected as Deputy President of the ANC, is that he may very well be elected as Deputy President of the country by Ramaphosa. These are the changes. This is the shifting deck chairs of the Titanic. But here's the bottom line: none of this matters. None of this matters. The cabinet in this country is filled with the most inept, incompetent, lazy, stupid, and totally useless individuals, to the point where, don't take my word for it, look at your quality of life. Can you honestly say your quality of life, especially if you're someone who's dependent on the state and state services because you're a poorer individual, can you honestly say on, let's say, the big three, what we call enabling opportunities in economics, safety and security, healthcare and education, can you say, for instance, on those three things alone, that your quality of life has improved due to the quality of the cabinet members in this country? The answer is likely no. So it begs belief that anybody will believe that any cabinet reshuffle at this point by Ramaphosa will in any way improve service delivery. It will not. What you need in this country, I'll repeat what I said in the first segment of the show, is a complete change of government in 2024. And beyond that, a personal responsibility by us, the citizenry, the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South Africa. Personal responsibility for us to use our means, that is, banding together as communities to achieve the very services that we're not getting from the state. If we have to take that approach, and almost mazakele or build it yourself approach, which is something we'll be talking about this year, and I'll be producing content on this year, that's the approach I will argue will free us from the dependency on a political elite in this country who do not give a damn about you. All right, that's it for this episode of Vuka Nazo, the first for 2023. We will, of course, I'm still a little rusty. I did take a long leave of absence. I'm a bit rusty, but nonetheless, things will get slicker, things will improve. And hey, this show might even have occasionally a different face to it as I begin to travel across this country, advocating for liberty ideas. I may not have time to do the show, so you might have some new hosts or different hosts every now and then. A reminder to you, if you like the show, hit that like button, whether you're watching, of course, on YouTube, Facebook, or on Facebook. And if you're watching on YouTube in particular, subscribe to the channel. And remember, we have a website. Visit us at bigdaddyliberty.com. There, of course, you can pledge your support. Join the South Africans who are putting aside 50 to 100 Rand a month to support this show. Payment options are on our website, bigdaddyliberty.com. With that being said, happy Monday. Enjoy your day. I'll see you bright and early tomorrow for Vuka Nazo.